the financial services sector. And we've got Robert Thursfield, who's Director of Financial Institutions at Fitch Ratings, joining us on the show. The fact that UAE banks may actually face increasing or tightening capital pressure due to significant exposures to Dubai World and Nakheel is something that is leading to quite a bit of concern in the international market. And we've got Robert joining us, of course. Robert, now do you believe the ratings criteria for this region has changed at all?
Not really. I mean, we still think, certainly on the bank side that I cover, that long-term ratings are based on support from the federal authorities in Abu Dhabi, and that standalone strength is that, ignoring support, and that has certainly got weaker, particularly for the Dubai-based banks, in the light of what's happened.
Robert, what about lending conditions? How are they looking going forward?
Certainly more challenging. I guess that's no surprise. Impairments were certainly continuing to rise anyway through this year before this happened, and we saw that happening into 2010. This potentially makes the problem worse for Dubai, particularly. It's going to be a challenge for the banks. They're going to have to focus a lot more on their credit risk management and good credits.
And Robert, again, where do you see specific rating actions?
Yes, I mean, we put the individual ratings of these Dubai banks only on rating watch negative. The large Abu Dhabi banks, at this moment have not changed that. They're still on effectively a stable outlook on their standalone strengths. That obviously could change. There's still a lot of uncertainty, lack of information as to A, the nature of the problems at Dubai World, and B, where they spread to. There's a lot of talk about it spreading into Dubai Holdings and other bits of Dubai Inc. And then, there's knock-on impacts on the rest of the Dubai economy. And Abu Dhabi banks are exposed to Dubai, just obviously not in the same proportions as the Dubai banks are.
What specifically, Robert, do investors need to watch out for in terms of sectors especially?
We've also taken action on government-related corporate entities as well. I guess investors have got to make sure they're reading all the documentation, but equally, my understanding was there was a lot of sort of unsaid commitments to support that perhaps wouldn't be in the documentation, but I guess people have just got to be more diligent.
But were you concerned about transparency before the crisis even?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's always been an issue for us in this region, not just Dubai, for this region.
When do you see lending coming back then, Robert?
I think previously we thought Q4 this year would see some improvements. Obviously this has now happened. I think this will make things obviously tougher in Q4 and into next year. I don't expect to see high levels of growth. I think the big sort of 20, 30, 40% we saw in 05, 06, 07 are gone for a while. The central bank said this year they didn't really want to see loan growth of more than 10% for any of the UAE banks, and I don't see why they would want to see anything different in 2010. I suspect it's probably going to be somewhere between 5 and 10% for most banks.